Okay, so for our first example, let's look at a couple of points that are a little bit easier to deal with. They both have positive x and y coordinates. So we're going to find the distance and the midpoint between those 2 points. So let's start with the distance formula. So the distance between 2 points is the square root of the difference of the x coordinates squared plus the difference of the y coordinates squared. So I like to write the formula down. You could look at it in your notes too. I tell students they don't have to write this down, but put it in your notes. So let's look at the first one. So we will substitute in place of x sub 1 and y sub 1 and x sub 2 and y sub 2. So if we call this point 1, say, over here, and this point 2 here, I'd be looking at 6, because that's the x coordinate here, minus the x coordinate from over here, x sub 1. So we'll go ahead and do that first. And we have to remember to square that. And now let's take y sub 2 minus y sub 1. So that'll be 16 minus 8. That quantity squared. So let's go ahead and do some simplifications here. That will give us, let's see, 6 squared plus 8 squared, which is equal to the square root of 36 plus 64. And 36 and 64 conveniently adds up to 100, and the square root of 100 is 10. So plus or minus 10, but we are not solving an equation here, and we're talking about a distance. So distances are always going to be positive. So there's our distance formula. We also want to find the midpoint between these 2 points. So I'm going to start by writing the midpoint formula down. So scooch over here a little bit. So midpoint is going to be the sum of the 2 coordinates. I'd say one of the most common mistakes I see is students will keep the minus sign in here like it is over in the other formula over here, but we're taking the average of the 2 y coordinates and the average of the 2 x coordinates. So that's the formula. Again, don't really need to write this down. I'm just writing it down for the video. So we're going to go ahead and substitute x sub 1 and x sub 2. So that would be 0 plus 6 all over 2, comma. Let's see, now the y coordinates. Y sub 1 is 8 and y sub 2 is 16. So that's 8 plus 16 divided by 2. So we have to do a little bit of simplification here. So we'll end up with 6 over 2, comma, let's see, 24 over 2. So that means that the midpoint of these 2 points right here, this point 1 and point 2, is going to be 3, comma, 12. And that is the final answer. So let me know in the comments down below what questions you have on that. Now let's take a look at a second example. We'll level it up a little bit. We'll use some points that have some negative coordinates in them here. So we're going to go ahead and find the distance and the midpoint, the same as previously. So I'm going to say that the distance is equal to the square root. I'm just going to go right in and put in the differences here. Negative 4 minus 3 squared plus 5 minus a negative 2 squared. Make that a little longer. So where these are coming from, this is my x sub 2 minus x sub 1. X sub 1 is right here, plus, and then square it, plus 5, that's my y sub 2, minus a negative 2, which is the y sub 1 coordinate. So once we have that put in there, we can go ahead and start to make some simplifications here. So let's see, we'd have a negative 7 squared plus let's see, 5 minus a negative is plus positive, so that's a 7 squared. So here's where it doesn't matter which way you go. Like I'm calling this point 1 and this point 2, but because we are squaring, this negative is going to get squared. It's going to turn into a positive either way. So I'd have 49 plus 49, which equals the square root of 98. So there is the distance between these 2 points right here, the square root of 98. So let's go ahead and look at the midpoint. So the midpoint, we're going to do this a little bit more quickly too. Says, let me change color here quickly. So that would be x sub 1, that's what we had 3, plus x sub 2 divided by 2, comma, y sub 1, that's right here, coming from right here, and that's going to be plus 5, and that gets divided by 2. So again, where these are coming from, the 3 is my x sub 1, this negative 4 is my x sub 2, this negative 2 is my y sub, my y sub 1, and this 5 is my y sub 2. So we're just taking the average of those. So simplifying on through, I have negative 1 over 2, comma, negative 3 over 2. Check that, that's a positive 3. So the final answer would be that the midpoint is negative 1/2, comma, 3/2. So you can get fractional answers with these. So that's the nature of pre-calculus, I guess. They don't always work out to be round numbers. So go ahead and hit the like and subscribe button if you have not already. And stick around. I'm going to do a third example that uses an application of the midpoint. So this is an application problem. It says here, show that the midpoint, show that a quadrilateral with vertices, P, Q, R, and S is a parallelogram by proving that its 2 diagonals bisect each other. So here we're talking about applications of this rule. So if I were to it's not a very straight line, if I were to sketch this out, just going to very sketch this. So here's point P, 1, 2. Q would be like 4, 4. 5, 9 is up here a little bit. And let's see, 2, 7 would be somewhere around here. So we have this parallelogram right here, or we think it's a parallelogram. So this would be, let me change my color here. We're looking at P, Q, R, and S. So the suggestion is being made, prove that the 2 diagonals bisect each other. So we're going to prove that these 2 things bisect each other right here. So that means that they would have the same midpoints. So let's go ahead and do the midpoint formula for, do that. The midpoint formula for, let's see, I'll start with P and R. So with P and R, let's see, I'd have 1 plus 5 divided by 2, comma, 2 plus 9 divided by 2. So I end up with 6 over 2, comma, 11 over 2, or 3, comma, 11/2. So that's the midpoint for this piece right here. Let me switch up the colors and I'll do this midpoint second. So that midpoint is going to entail using the Q and the R. So Q has an x coordinate of 4, and S has a x coordinate of 2. And let's see, 4 is the y coordinate of x, and 7 is the y coordinate of 2. So we end up with 6 over 2 again, and 11 over 2, and when I simplify everything, I get 3 halves, comma, 11 halves, or 5 1/2 if you prefer. So once again, where these are all coming from, this one is this one right here, x sub 1, and x sub 2 is this 5, dividing by 2. Y sub 1 and y sub 2 are where the 2 and the 9 are coming from. Divide by 2 and go through it. So here we have S and Q. So with, Q has an x coordinate of 4 and S has an x coordinate of 2. And let's see, Q has a y coordinate of 4 and S has a y coordinate of 7. So that is where that 11 is coming from. So hopefully you got some value out of this. If so, go ahead and hit the like and subscribe button. That does help the algorithm, help other people who need help find me on YouTube.